When the dream becomes a burden. Imagine being 15 years old, and the entire football world already knows your name. Every touch is recorded. Every goal becomes a viral clip. Every mistake is replayed thousands of times. People aren't asking who you are anymore. They're asking who you're going to become. The next superstar. The next Ballon d'Or winner. The next Messi. The next Ronaldo. The label sounds like a dream. But what happens when that dream becomes an expectation? Because a Wonderkid isn't simply a talented teenager anymore. He becomes a prediction. A promise. A future career that millions of people feel entitled to watch. And suddenly, the pressure isn't just to play football. It's to become the person everyone already believes you are. That is where the psychological story begins. Chapter 1. The world sees a star. At first, the attention feels incredible. A teenager scores a spectacular goal. And suddenly the cameras appear. Interviews. Headlines. Millions of views. Clips spreading across social media. People discussing his transfer value before he has even finished school. For the player, it can feel like everything has changed overnight. But psychologically, something else is happening. The gap between the person and the public image begins to grow. The world sees a Wonderkid. The teenager still sees himself as someone learning the game, trying things, making mistakes, discovering what kind of player he wants to become. But the internet doesn't always have patience for development. It wants results now. And that creates a dangerous contradiction. A young player needs freedom to experiment, but fame creates pressure to perform. Chapter 2. The next label. Then comes the comparison. The most powerful word in football might be next. The next Messi. The next Ronaldo. The next great striker. The next generational talent. But comparison changes the psychology of performance. Because now the young player isn't competing only against an opponent. He's competing against an imaginary future version of himself. Every good performance becomes evidence that the prediction was correct. Every bad performance becomes evidence that the prediction was wrong. And eventually, a teenager can begin playing not to express talent, but to protect an identity. That's when creativity becomes dangerous. Taking risks becomes uncomfortable. Trying something new creates fear. Because a failed skill isn't just a failed skill anymore. It becomes a clip, a headline, a meme, a comment section, a reminder that millions of people are watching. And the player begins asking a very different question. Not, what can I create? But, what happens if I get this wrong? Chapter 3. The digital stadium never closes. There was a time when a footballer could have a bad match, go home, sleep, and start again the next morning. Now the stadium can follow them home. The match ends. The phone doesn't. A missed chance becomes a 15-second video. A poor performance becomes a compilation. A mistake becomes a debate. And the player doesn't have to search for the criticism. It arrives automatically. Notification after notification. Opinion after opinion. Praise can be addictive, but criticism can become equally powerful. The danger isn't one negative comment. It's repetition. The constant reminder that your performance is being evaluated. Again, and again, and again. That can gradually move attention away from the game itself. The player stops experiencing football and starts monitoring football. How did that look? How many people saw it? What are they saying? Am I still good enough? And when attention turns inward, the game can become mentally heavier. Chapter 4. When talent becomes a cage. This is where the Wonderkid paradox appears. The talent that made the player famous can eventually become the thing he is most afraid of losing. Imagine knowing that everyone expects brilliance from you. Every match, every week, every season. You don't just want to perform well. You feel like you have to prove that the hype was justified. That creates perfectionism. And perfectionism can quietly destroy creativity. Because creativity requires failure. You try the pass. It doesn't work. You attempt the dribble. You lose the ball. You shoot from distance. You miss. That's how players develop. But a young player surrounded by enormous expectations may begin avoiding those risks. Safe pass. Safe decision. Safe performance. The player is still talented. But something has changed. He's no longer playing to discover his ceiling. He's playing to avoid falling from it. And that's when potential can start feeling like a cage. Chapter 5. The identity problem. The deepest danger isn't criticism. It's identity. When everyone tells a teenager, "You're special," it can become difficult to answer a much more important question. Who am I when I don't play well? Because football is only supposed to be something you do. It isn't supposed to become everything you are. But for a Wonderkid, the distinction can disappear. Footballer, celebrity, investment, future superstar, brand, public figure. 5 different identities can begin competing for the same person. And somewhere beneath all of that, there is still a teenager trying to grow. Still learning how to handle failure. Still learning how to separate performance from self-worth. Still trying to figure out who they are when the cameras disappear. That private development may be the most important part of the entire journey. Chapter 6. What greatness actually requires. The healthiest young stars need something the internet rarely offers. Time. Space. Privacy. Permission to be ordinary sometimes. A bad match shouldn't become a crisis. A quiet month shouldn't become a verdict. A mistake shouldn't erase a season of progress. Because greatness isn't built through constant perfection. It's built through repetition. Failure. Adjustment. Patience. And the freedom to experiment. The best environment for a young player isn't the one that creates the most attention. It's the one that protects enough of their identity for them to keep developing. Coaches have a role. Families have a role. Clubs have a role. Fans have a role. And perhaps most importantly, the player needs to understand something. The world may have given you a label, but you don't have to live inside it. Let them become themselves. The next time you see a 17-year-old footballer go viral, remember what you are actually watching. Not a finished superstar. Not the next Messi. Not the next Ronaldo. A teenager. A human being. A player still discovering what he can become. Because the greatest tragedy isn't that a Wonderkid fails to become a legend. The real tragedy is becoming so afraid of disappointing the world that you never become yourself. The goal shouldn't be to protect the label. It should be to protect the person underneath it. Because football doesn't need another perfect teenager. It needs players who are free enough to make mistakes, brave enough to take risks, and strong enough to discover their own identity. And maybe the greatest Wonderkid isn't the one who becomes famous the fastest. It's the one who survives the fame long enough to become exactly who he was meant to be.